episode of Underrated and Overlooked Podcast. A lot to get into today. We'll be talking about the NBA Finals, previewing what's going to happen there between the Nuggets and the Miami Heat, and then we'll talk about Game 7 last night. A lot to get into in the recruiting world. We are just 2 weeks away from our 7-on-7 tournament at Georgia Tech, so make sure you go to scoretl.com and get all the news there. That will be here very, very shortly. We'll be having player previews as well, so look out for that. And then obviously our media day is about a month away, month and about 2-3 weeks away, so stay tuned for that as well. So, talk about how you feeling today, Craig. How's your Memorial Day?
It was good. I enjoyed the weekend, but June is going to be very busy. I know for the players, but also for us. So it's summer officially, but this is going to be a big month. I'm excited.
It really is, and we'll go ahead and start with this weekend. A very big weekend. We had Cam Newton 7-on-7 tournament. You had the NFG7 League passing tournament as well. Major players from high school, 8th grade, 15U, 16U, 17U, all playing. So, biggest standout for me I found and I saw was at the Cam Newton 7-on-7 tournament, 2027 athlete Kevin Hughes. Heck of a grab, two-handed snag. He had played very well. His team Grind Factory 7-on-7 ended up winning the tournament for 15U. Definitely a player to watch for. Already building a nice following for himself. Already has an on-3 recruiting profile as well. So he stood out. And then I heard that Sam Brown for his team, he had 6 picks in his tournament. So he also played and performed really well for his team. Performing marvelous as well. And then rising freshman Riley Drew was also locked in for Oklahoma camp. He played 7-on-7 as well, and his team went 4-0. So that's the major things I saw from 7-on-7.
Yeah, the Cam Newton 7-on-7. It's amazing how it's just taken off over the years. But I think that's what's exciting about what we're going to see at Georgia Tech, because that's the all-star setting. These guys have been competing with those teams, but now it's back with their head coach, and it's more kind of like a practice 7-on-7 blend. But just from these highlights, I mean, it's June. The offseason really hasn't started yet, but they've been out there competing. This is a big month for them. And then that 7-on-7, that's going to prepare them for these camp visits coming up to start June.
Certainly, and then another player that also stood out for that same Grind Factory team was Darnell Kelly. So I think he's a name to watch for. He's the offensive MVP for his 15U team that did win the Grind Factory team. He plays for Peachtree Ridge, so I think he'll be a starter this year. We heard about Peachtree Ridge kind of in the spring game, so I think that's going to be a name to watch out for. Darnell Kelly, what kind of year can he have? I'm presuming he's going to be the starter, but he played really well in 7-on-7, winning offensive MVP. So I think that's a name to watch out for as well.
Yep, Peachtree Ridge is scrimmage Cal, so they've definitely got some experience with some top receivers. But yeah, it's just amazing how much confidence can be grown in these 7-on-7 settings, just heading into these big showcases. And yeah, I'm excited. I've always been a fan of 7-on-7. I don't think it's the same thing as football. As I always say, if you don't have to worry about getting tackled, it's a lot easier to catch the ball. But at the same time, it's getting these guys in shape. They're balling out. They're having fun, and the competition is always a good thing.
Yep, and then the last thing on the 7-on-7 and some major offers, Shamar Arnox for Milton. He picked up an Arizona State offer this past weekend, so he's continuing to rack up. He's a 3-star player for the Milton Eagles, so a name definitely to watch out for. And then I'm going to have on Braxton and Bryson Davis this week, prepping for their sophomore years. They had some tape that they sent to me, them getting prepared. They're both linebackers, expecting them both to start for the team. They transferred to Heritage this past offseason. And they just picked up Central Michigan offers. Both players did. So definitely names to watch out for, and I'm going to have them on my show Thursday.
Yeah, and another thing these 7-on-7s are doing, it's like if you're an incoming freshman, this is your first chance to get to compete against the varsity guys, the juniors, the rising seniors. So it's a big deal for sure. We saw Max Brown, Sammy Brown's younger brother, obviously growing up alongside Sam. He's probably prepared him, but I mean, he balled out this weekend too. 6 interceptions. He's getting a taste of going up against these upperclassmen, and we're probably going to see a lot of these freshmen play roles this year.
I definitely think so. And then actually a name that I don't necessarily know his name, but I was at a 7-on-7 as well this weekend. It was G7 League Passing League 7-on-7. Guy that stood out to me, he plays for Morrow. I'm going to have to figure out his name. I didn't get his name before he left, but it's I think he's a rising freshman as well, but could really throw the ball well. I've seen a lot of plays. They were running cover 2 and cover 3. Cover 3, you're going to have that deep safety cover in the middle of the field. You're going to have your two corners kind of playing, that deep curl essentially. So I thought he did a good job. They were running great routes, corner routes, putting pressure on the safety, putting pressure on the corners. And I thought he had a really great deep ball. His ball placement was really good, hitting the corner routes, hitting the digs. I think that's definitely a name that we're going to have to watch out for in the coming years. I'm definitely going to try to learn more about him, but I think that's a name that also stood out to me at the 7-on-7. Throws a really great deep ball, has great with his progressions, didn't turn over the ball a lot. Definitely somebody that stood out to me as well.
Yeah, so he's at Mora High School. Is that what you
He'll
said?
be going tomorrow. Yep.
Yeah, and just, I mean, 7-on-7s are beneficial to everyone, but especially the quarterback. You talk about the deep ball, just getting that timing down, the reps, the throws. It's so valuable for them, and I'm just excited about seeing what we witnessed at Georgia Tech, because the Corky Kell 7-on-7, I mean, the teams that end up winning that thing,
Usually have good seasons.
Yeah, it's quarterfinals or more. I mean, Colquitt won it. They ended up winning the state title. Archer won it one year. They actually made it to the finals that year.
Creekside recently went to
Creekside
semifinals.
last year.
Yeah.
We've seen who else? Oh yeah, Marietta won it when they won the state title. So now we have 3 days of champions, 3 different brackets. I'm really interested to see who goes out there. What does Walton do? They had a disappointing spring game against Roswell. How are they going to look?
Actually, speaking of, I know you're covering Tuesday for the player profiles. Who are just, I know this is kind of off the topic, but who are some players that just, stand out to you that you kind of got your eye on for Tuesday in the coming weeks? I think 2 weeks away. Who are some players you think could stand out for that day and that you're really excited to see?
I think in terms of the teams, it's
who you got?
I've heard a lot about Blessed Trinity's quarterback. He's a taller guy, underclassman. I don't have his name off the top of my head. Blessed Trinity usually doesn't have a spring scrimmage. They obviously have Coach Dudley now, a new coaching staff. They did hold an in-house spring scrimmage, but I've heard a lot of good things about him and their team that typically runs the ball more. They're going to have to rely on him to kind of have a new balance in that offense. Cartersville will be interesting to watch, and then of course Sire Hardaway and Douglas County.
I agree. Without Aaron Gregory too, the rising sophomore, already picked up offers from Georgia, a couple SEC schools and ACC schools too.
Yeah, and they're going to be in there with Calvary Day, Jake Merklinger. Yep. That'll be a good pod.
Tennessee commit.
Yes, and then Monroe area. I mean, gosh, they've been outstanding too. So also, we have Julian Lewis. Oh no, sorry, not on Tuesday. Look at the updated sheet. Yeah, Woodward Academy, their new quarterback that's coming in with all that talent around them. So
a whole lot of talent.
Yeah.
And then for me, for Wednesday, obviously we'll give you guys a preview more in depth when the time comes. Obviously, I have a preview for that following week on the 20th. But for me, I have Wednesday. Some players stand out to me. Obviously, Rashawn Dinkins is a 4-star player. Absolute ball hawk last year as a sophomore, getting a lot of minutes. He had 8 interceptions last year. That's a player that I'm looking out for. Isaiah Cannon, who's going to Notre Dame. That's another player. I think they're very deep at Warner Robins. Cam Flowers is another player who's going to be a focal point of the offense. Those 2 players, I think, are going to be very key for them. And then Bluffton, South Carolina is going to be there. As I talked to the head coach this past offseason, told me about linebacker, running back Jeremiah Curry, major offers from West Virginia, Cincinnati, Miami of Ohio, Coastal Carolina, blowing up kind of in the recruiting world. And he talked a lot about his quarterback, Owen Byes, a dual threat QB who's 6'3", runs a 4.7 40, very accurate inside the pocket, great extended release, has the ability to escape out of jams and things like that. That's a player I'm watching out for as well. Creekside, how do they follow up that semifinal appearance? They're going to be playing Mater Day this year. I think it'll be very interesting to see, how good Creekside's going to be. And they're going to be tested early and often. So I can't wait to see what Creekside is going to do. That's going to be really, really interesting as well. Thanks, Jimmy, man. Good to see you again back in the comment section. I'm going to address that question in just a second. And then, other team, I think North Gwinnett, right? They're going to have new head coach Eric Godfrey. How is that team going to look not having their Coach Stewart anymore, right? Ryan Hall had a really great sophomore year, took big steps forward, had growing pains. Julian Waters was kind of their lead back last year. How will he look going into another season? And I think Parkview, all that talent they have, Cortez Smith, Jalen Crawford, Mike Matthews, they have so many studs on that group. How will the quarterback position look what can Joe Sturdivant do with that team. Really interested to see. Amongst others, obviously Walton's in there as well. Alpharetta, Mill Creek, how do they follow up their year? But I think that's going to be interesting. But Craig, we got a really good question. Jimmy Cash said, what is the scouting report on Brookwood High School football?
That is so funny. I was just looking at that for Wednesday. Scouting report, man, I think they're going to look a lot different. Don't have Bryce Dobson anymore. They don't have Dylan Lonergan. And I mean, those two guys have been on the scene for quite a while. So that's a pretty significant uh, hole to fill. I mean, if you look at the Brookwood Grayson game last year, Bryce Dobson was the only player on Brookwood that made any big play, any big impact. I think he had a big kick return, made a nice long catch. Other than that, they didn't really have a lot of firepower offensively. And obviously, when Dylan got hurt later on, they didn't look too good. So I haven't seen kind of who their next stars are going to be, but obviously it's Brookwood. They're going to be competing for that region title, but I don't know. But you look at their region, there is a lot of movement. Parkview has a new coach. Um, Grayson has a new coach. Newton has a new coach. Archer will be really solid again, and then you have South Gwinnett with Coach Lamar entering year 2. So I think it's going to be tough for Brookwood to come out of that region, but we're going to have to see kind of a new cast of playmakers because last year those were definitely the most valuable guys.
What I'm looking at for Brookwood is going to be their defense, right? I think they have some good pieces there. I think Gober, who's kind of their linebacker, Caleb Neal, their safety nickel. How good? I think this team is going to have to win games with their defense, right? Quarterback, we're going to have to see who's going to be their starter for them, right? We don't really know. We're not going to be able to see them at Corky, fortunately, the 7-on-7 tournament. So I'm not really sure how they're going to look going into kind of next season as far as, just offensive. I'm assuming they're going to be leaning on their wide receiver, Lee Niles. He's going to be a big focal point of the offense next year. He's going to have to take that big step forward for the Brookwood Broncos. But I think their defense is going to be a lot better than what most people think. I think that's going to have to be kind of the determining factor to kind of keep them in games. Offensively, I'm going to have to see. I can't really give a really big breakdown on that because I'm not sure. But we'll see how Brookwood's going to look. He says, I'm asking because my Carver Tigers of Columbus has them on our schedule this season. Oh, okay. So I forgot Jimmy is a very big Carver Columbus. You were talking about them a little bit, Craig, about Carver Columbus this offseason and kind of last year. Just, what kind of sense you about them? Like, how are they looking, you think, going into next year?
They were rolling last year, and then they ran into Oconee County and had a really tough outing. But I think they have a chance to contend for a state title for sure. I mean, 3A is going to be really tough, but yeah, we'll see. I like Carver Columbus. I thought they were under the radar for sure last year with what they were doing and new head coach. But yeah, they've got a ton of talent, so we'll see. We will see. But I'm looking at Brookwood real quick. In terms of running the ball, yeah, that's crazy. Dylan Lonergan was second on the team in rushing last year.
Yeah, he was a big part of it. Yep.
So yeah, they're definitely going to have an interesting offseason. But that creates opportunities. But yeah, it's a big test for them out of the gate. But they've opened in Corky every single year since '92, so they'll be ready.
Yep. And then what I'll say is, for you, Jimmy, also appreciate you tuning in. Stay with us. Come back next week, next Tuesday at noon. We're going to be back here live. We're going to do a breakdown of Carver Columbus, looking at their team, looking at their roster, looking at some of the players they have, looking at their schedule, and maybe even give you a win-loss potential record for them as well. But yeah, give us until next week. We're going to do a deeper dive into Carver Columbus, looking at their prospects, how they're going to look, how they're looking going into the offseason, maybe even try to have a coach on and find out more about the team. So keep it locked. Try to come back next week. We might even try to have the head coach on our show next week to talk to him and learn more about the team. And then also for you, Dave, we're gonna address some of those comments that you had in the later section in the third segment about Miami and the Nuggets. We're excited for that. We'll talk about that in just a second. But let's transition to college. I wanted to take a deep dive into Florida and Miami recruiting, how they're doing right now. What I think, Craig, really, really interesting is 2024 class, right? Miami right now, they're ranked 24th, 1 4-star, 8 3-stars. Now, I've compared that to Florida. Florida's doing it. Florida has 1 5-star, 6 4-stars, and I think 7 3-stars. So Florida right now is number 11, just right outside of that top 10 class for them. So I think they landed some major prospects. I think that's been the case the last couple of years, is that the other schools have been kind of struggling with the recruiting, and Florida's been able to get the major prospects in the state and kind of out recruit kind of the Miamis of the world and other schools in kind of South Florida. So I think that's interesting. That's kind of the same thing going on right now. Florida will be a really interesting case to watch this upcoming season, the SEC East. You know, had a really good quarterback last year, Anthony Richardson. Didn't play a lot. You know, that's his first full season, but how will Florida look going forward? But I think it's really interesting looking at their classes and what's kind of broke out.
Yeah, I think Coach Napier's done a good job taking over pretty recently. With Florida, though, they have an opportunity in the East. They've, in my opinion, been the premier school in Florida. More so, they have more consistency than Miami, Florida State. They've had ups and downs. If Florida lands a top 10 recruiting class, I think it might not be this year, but in a couple years, I would not be surprised at all if they're the new kings of the East. They just have to get over Georgia. They know that game's going to be a big one every single year. But I think the East is open for them for an opportunity, and Florida has obviously more college talent than any other state, in my opinion.
No, they definitely do. I mean, I totally agree with that. And I think it's gonna be interesting to see and follow Florida this upcoming season, see if they can make some noise. I mean, that the SEC East has been dominated by Georgia recently, but I think it's getting more competitive. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know if you've seen some of the things I saw. I'm gonna bring Tennessee in the realm as well and talk about them, but I'm hearing a lot of buzz about this kid, Jordan Milton, that's kind of succeeding hidden hooker, right? Kid threw a ball just basically off his back foot, just accurately 85 yards with no problem.
Jeez.
So I mean, Hidden Hooker's already given him his praise. He's already said that I think national championship. I think potential Heisman candidate. So if your guy you competed with, Hidden Hooker, is talking that highly of you, I think that says a lot. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think that him giving him his praise that early, he's going to step in the role as a starter next year for Tennessee. Tennessee has a lot of weapons. Great head coach in Josh Heupel. I think that's going to be really interesting to see. That's why I brought Tennessee into the mix. So it's a lot of buzz around the quarterback.
Tennessee last year, great offense, not a great defense, and so that's
why they had that
weakness.
That's why they had that shootout with Alabama.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So their offense can compete, but you go up against the top tier defenses, you might run into some trouble. And if you remember that Tennessee Georgia game, it's just the timing's a little off. It's like the receiver's slightly open, but it's 1 yard short. It's 1 yard overthrown. It's rushed. And so, I don't know, if Florida is able to have a great quarterback, build a strong defense, they can come out of those matchups on top for sure. With Tennessee, though, I have no doubt they'll be great offensively, but can they drastically improve on the defensive front?
That's going to be the question. And I don't even think they have to be a top 10 defense. If they're even an average defense, I think they can be okay and be in a lot of games and make noise. But let's move to another SEC school, Auburn, right? Do they have a chance to contend the SEC West with the Alabamas, with the SEC West champion LSU Tigers, right? I think what's interesting about Auburn is same thing I said a little bit earlier about another team, Brookwood, right? I think they're going to be very, very good defensively, right? They got a lot of good players out of Georgia that's coming in, right? They landed former Carver player Deron Reed, right? I think it was top 15 in the state. Got Terrence Love in the backfield, kind of that, or in the defensive back end, kind of that Swiss Army knife, can do a lot of things well, right? I think they could be really, really interesting in the SEC West next year, coming out to compete with those teams. I think the interesting thing is going to be how does their offense look next year? But I think defensively, they're going to be very, very good.
Yeah, it's hard for me to think that Auburn's coming into this upcoming season better than Alabama. It's just Alabama's been the premier team. But right now, Auburn's class of 2024. Martavius Collins from Calhoun. That guy is one of the best prospects athletes in the state by far, 6'3", 240 pounds. And basically play that tight end role that's taking over college football. Auburn right now, they only have 4 or 5 players committed to this upcoming class. It looks like they're taking a late approach. I think
Hmm.
they're going to come in and really just look at how the chips are moving around and then put together a really dominant class. They'll have the resources. It's Auburn, but I think their late approach is they're trying to pull players that are currently committed. I think they're going to be all out aggressive.
You got to be, and I think Auburn's been doing pretty good in the recruiting class here lately, and I think they're right in the fold for trying to compete and contend. Obviously, we're going to see if Bama, who had a really good 2023 recruiting class and now is having a really good 2024 recruiting class, can be right back at the top and be back at the level that we know they can play at. But I think it's open there for Auburn. And I think if they get out to a good start, I mean, they could be competitive and potentially have a chance.
Yeah, so let's look at last year's class. Kay and Lee from Cedar Grove.
Yeah.
Keep recruiting Cedar Grove. If Auburn can basically just pull in 1 or 2 from Cedar Grove every year, I mean they'll be fine. That is a lock. Cedar Grove, last year led the entire state in NFL prospects.
Right.
It's like you know what you're getting. So I think Auburn, gosh, and they're right on that border close to the Carrollton Troop area. They have definitely pulled Kobe Hudson from Troop. There's a lot of talent there. They just need to be aggressive, hit the right
Mm-hmm.
spots in Georgia, and obviously uh, compete with Alabama in their state. But I think they're, yeah, I mean, the SEC is where it's at. I just think they need to be aggressive late.
I agree. And then a really good question from Jimmy said, will Alabama and Auburn be coming to the East when Texas and Oklahoma come in?
Oh man, we'd have to ask Ellie Mae that one.
Yeah, that one I'm not sure about. I don't know if they've put the logistics in yet about how it's going to look. I think that's in 2025, I believe. But that does kind of make sense if they were to move to the East because, I mean, they are closer to Georgia. But we're going to keep you updated on that one. We haven't heard any news yet on the landscape of what's going to happen there. I'm pretty sure in the next year, potentially, we'll probably know what's going to happen there. But let's keep it rolling. All right, so who will be the best coach in college football this upcoming season? Craig, you kind of brought up this question. I'm kind of torn between Mike Norvell of FSU, who I thought had a great opening start to the season. I kind of got Josh Hubble up there as well for me, as my coaches are I think could be coach of the year this upcoming season.
I'm going to go with Nick Saban.
I should have figured.
I am, but here's the thing: it's like look at that coaching tree. Look at Kirby. Look, it's just like Nick Saban is still the guy. We have all these new coaches coming in. The college landscape's changing.
You don't think he's been surpassed?
That's the thing. I think this upcoming season, I don't know. Alabama last year had some close losses. They didn't really have a great game all season. I just think there's a lot of pride there, and I think what is this year 2 or 3 of the transfer portal and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that they've been taking a steady approach. We might see them take it one more year.
Okay. I mean, we're going to see. I mean, I don't think he's lost his touch. Definitely not. I just think some parts of the roster last year were flawed. I think their weapons were not as good as it's been in previous years, right? You didn't have a Devontae Smith. You didn't have a Jerry Jeudy lining up. You didn't have a former Julio Jones. You didn't have all these stud receivers lining up for you, right? So, but I think he did really good in his 2023 recruiting class. I think he's going to be more talented. I think getting Downs and Justice Haynes and getting all those 3 and 4 and 5-star prospects is going to help him. I think they're going to be more talented this year. I think they're going to be competitive like how they always are. But I think, too, I kind of agree with Jimmy. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I'm not going to say Coach Prime is going to win Coach of the Year, but how are they going to look starting out, right? Because their schedule for Colorado, just to transition real quick, is so tough, right? They're going to be playing USC, right? They have their hopes on finally making the college football playoff. That's going to be a team on their schedule, right? They're going to be playing the Oregons. They're going to be playing I think the Pac-12, as we said in previous shows and months ago. It's going to be really interesting to watch out for. And what's going to be key for Coach Prime to actually have that case is going to be for Colorado to get out to a good start, be competitive, be contending at the end for a Pac-12 title and potentially even a playoff berth. If he does that, I think they have a good chance. Obviously talented, but they lost a lot of players in the transfer portal, brought a lot of guys in. How quickly can he get the guys to play up to snuff? I think it's going to be the key there.
Yeah, that is a great point, and obviously will be one of the biggest storylines this season. It's like Colorado, before Coach Prime got there, I mean, they were in rough shape.
Yeah,
They were one
easily.
of the probably least successful Power Five teams in the entire country. So it was no secret what his mission was when he went there. They brought him in. He was going to basically be the first coach in this new um, environment to just whole scale change a roster, improve it as fast as possible. Uh, that was never a secret, and we'll see. I mean, I think they'll definitely be better, but um, yeah, it's game changing.
I totally agree. And then I'm gonna let you pose this question. I mean, you've been hitting off the box all day today, Craig, as far as your questions and things you wanted to bring up. So I'm gonna let you bring this one up, as far as just your potential for NIL and what you said about college football players and coaches. So I'll let you pose the question. I think it's a great one too.
Yeah, so I was thinking, how soon is the day going to come when the players are making more than a coach? And I want to be clear, a player on the team is making more than the coach of that team. Not this player from this school is making more than this coach. No. Imagine a scenario where you have an Alabama player making more than Nick Saban. That would be pretty crazy to think about, but I think it's coming within probably 1 or 2 years. Top NIL athletes right now, what was the highest valuation? About 7 million.
7 mil.
Well, what's the highest for a coach? It's like 12 million. So
It's not far off.
it's not far at all, and
No.
that would be interesting because then what's going to happen? Are the coaches going to say we need more money now? Now that the players are making more.
You're gonna have. I mean, you're gonna have egos. You're gonna have, as far as the coaches, as far as the players. Like, I don't care what this coach has to say. I'm making more money than him. I'm good. So I think it's gonna be really interesting, especially as you mentioned with the football game coming out right next year.
Yep.
Players are splitting the 5 million. Right. There's been cases where people have been saying, okay, well, if it's a top tier athlete like a Bryce Young, kind of the face of college football, or if it's a Caleb Williams, another face of college football, they should be getting tiered more, right? They should be making maybe not having to be split. Maybe they make their own 1 million or 2 million because they're carrying the sport of college football, bringing more kind of notice, exposure to it, right? So then I think you have that case, and I think it's not out of the realm of possibility for a player to be making more than a coach, because if they have all these endorsements and they're playing well and they're getting these different things from, as far as NCAA games and major food companies, major tech companies, it's not a realm of possibility to see a player, if they're doing it financially smart, to be making more money than a coach. If they're getting a tech deal and then they're taking half of that and then investing it or putting it in other places where it can grow more money for them, and have maybe a part ownership or stock options in a certain company or tech company on the rise, and that company blows up or whatever, it's not out of the realm of possibility for a player to be making more than a coach.
It's funny though, thinking about the video game. It's like the person playing the video game is taking the role of the coach, but then the compensation, it doesn't even factor into it.
Right.
Even if you're playing um, Colorado, it's like, yeah, obviously Coach Prime's the coach. You're playing with those players, but where's the compensation going to come from? The likeness, even though you're quite literally pretending essentially to be the coach calling the plays. So I think there's opportunities for the coaches to get a bigger cut, but I mean, the amount of money that's going to be thrown around the next few years is going to be remarkable. I think it's going to make college coaches surpass NFL coaches in terms of their salaries, and the average is going to just keep rising. But I think we're going to see it. Um, I don't know, maybe with Bronny James, there's going to be a player in the locker room that's making it more than their head coach.
I don't disagree. I know our guy Dave said I don't see that happen personally, but I think we will see maybe. I don't think it's going to be a lot of players. I think it's going to be like a superstar player, well known. I wouldn't be shocked if he's making more, because remember, these coaches get paid per annual basis too. So some of them are making 4 or 5 million. It's not out of the realm of possibility to see that. I definitely think that's possible. But we want to share with you guys, or did you have another point?
No,
Greg?
I was just say we have kind of that sheet with the numbers. It is closer than people think.
A lot closer. And then I think another great point Craig brought up too was this, right? I think Georgia, and this is what separates Georgia from the others, right? You have this NIL, you have these players getting this money, but a lot of them aren't necessarily financially astute or savvy just yet, right? Imagine you're 18 and we're going to pay you a couple $100,000 or a couple million a year, right? A lot of people are going to go blow it. They're going to go put it on chains. They're going to go put it on cars, whatever, and spend it not smart. But look what George is doing. I think this is what really separates them from the rest. I'm going to share this with you guys. I think this is very interesting, right? Highlight it. Colleges are required to conduct a 5-hour financial literacy and life skills workshop at the beginning of student athletes' first and third years. Students will also be allowed to hire agents to negotiate on their behalf. Institutions are permitted to pull up to 75% of an athlete's NIL earnings to be distributed among all eligible athletes after graduation. Colleges can't conflict with institutions' contract or policies. This was effective July 1st, 2021, so close to almost 2 years ago. I didn't see, and Craig shared with me, I didn't see really any other school that had this specific language in it that said this part. 5-hour financial literacy course and life skills workshop. I think that's next level. I think that is crucial for the athletes. I think that is very important because a lot of times, like I said, you see NFL, NBA, whatever professional sport you want to say, 90% are broke after 3 years of playing. I'll say that again. 90% of the athletes are broke after 3 years that they've retired. I think that's very important. And I think this is next level. I think more states need to institute that language into the protocol and into their bylaws because I think that helps the players out going forward a lot too. Because again, guys, it's very difficult to be able to make it to the NFL or to the NBA or any professional league. It's cool now that you're able to make that kind of money in college. It might not necessarily be millions, it could be a couple 100,000, but that can be life changing. Again, as I said before, if you're able to put it in the right things, invest it, have it grow for you, you're not blowing it all, you're being smart with it, you learn financial literacy, it can help you going forward. And let's say you maybe not want to play on the next level. A lot of athletes do, but let's say you don't want to play. You're taking the steps forward, so then you can kind of prioritize what you want to do next. And you already have that financial literacy to know, okay, here's some things I should do, here's some things I shouldn't do. I should be cognizant of all these things, and I should plan it forward. And now I know what to do with my money. I think that's very crucial.
Yes, it is. And so that's one of the things people have been talking about the NIL. All these states kind of have different legislation they're passing. That's just a common sense, helpful tool. And I think putting it the first year and the third year is very important. If you think about some of these athletes, and this is literally happening, it's like, oh, choose our school over this one. We'll give you 10 grand. We'll give you 20 grand. Some of these players, this might be if they don't go on to play professionally and they have a high profile, big school career in college. That might be the most money they're ever making. It is very hard to live a certain lifestyle at a young age and then go into the real world where that money's not coming in as much. And so if you teach them, just put it in their mind on how to just kind of turn that wealth into something that's going to sustain themselves more, just make them more aware of that. I think it's going to save a lot of problems for sure. Because if you're making, let's say, 100 grand a year in college and then 60, 50 grand out of college, that's a big gap in how much money is coming in. And you might learn real fast that you can't quite afford the things you used to be able to. And that can cause a mental health crisis.
I don't disagree. It definitely can. And it's all about lifestyle and making sure that you can afford the things you can try to, spend for and try to get. So I think that's very crucial. Love to see that. I hope, as I said before, more states institute this legislation and make kids go to these seminars and these workshops in order to be able to know what to do with their money and be financially literate. And we're going to go back to that point really quick before we transition to our professional segment of when we were talking about the players. Okay, so I want you guys to see this really quick. We're going to share the screen. Craig, share this with me as well. Let's see really quick. I want y'all to see. So again, it's not a realm of possibility, right? So we want to show you guys Shadir Sanders, right? Colorado, 1.6 million. That's where he was valued at. Will Anderson, who just got drafted by the Houston Texans, right? 1.7 million. Bijan Robinson, 1.8 million. Olivia Dunn, gymnastics, 2.7 million. Caleb Williams, as we mentioned, kind of the face of college football right now, 3.2 million. All right, Bryce Young, 3.5 million. Arch Manning, who's supposed to go to Texas right now, valued at 3.5 million. Mikey Williams, we'll see what happens with that whole situation he had. But before all that happened, 3.6 million. And then number one, obviously, was Bronny James at 7.5. Now, I'm going to share the screen and show you the top salaries for coaches. Okay, I want you guys to see this. Hold on 1 second. All right, back to coaches. Nick Saban, 11.7 million. All right, it's number one. Kirby Smart, 11.25 million. Dabo Sweeney, 10.5 million. Lincoln Riley, 10 million. Brian Kelly, 9.5 million. Mel Tucker, 9.5 million. Ryan Day, 9.5 million. David Shaw, 8.9 million. He's no longer the coach anymore, but you get the point. Mario Cristobal, 8 million. Jimbo Fisher, 7.5 million. Lane Kiffin, 7.25 million. Jim Harbaugh, 7 million. James Franklin, 7 million. And then Pat Fitzgerald, 5.748 million. So again, back to our point, guys. There is still a little bit of, coaches are still ahead, but the major brand top athletes are not far behind. So definitely something not out of the realm of possibility. I think it'll take a couple years, but if you get a marquee athlete, like let's say maybe a Zion Williamson back in the day, he had a lot of buzz. It's not a realm of possibility he'd be close to making what Coach K was making. You know what I'm saying? That's how big Zion was. He was the draw, right? If you got a player that has a lot of draw, you probably won't be too far behind from what the coach is making.
Yeah, and as we said, I don't think it's going to be a widespread thing.
No.
But the day that happens, I think it's going to be pretty incredible to witness. And I don't know, I think just with what we talked about, the financial literacy thing, I think what we've seen with Steph Curry and Scoot Henderson, it's not even just that they're taking that more seriously. It's like, well, who's going to be coming back to give these seminars to the college athletes, teaching them about, hey, here's how I took advantage of this. Here's how I did my NIL deals. So they're going to come back and be able to use that as a business opportunity in itself to then potentially network with the next star at that former school. And so I think we're going to see some serious money. That is for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, LSU right now, their network of NIL deals that are coming in, it's just incredible. I think some schools are going to be way above others for sure, but individual athletes, I would not be surprised. The star power is there. I mean, just look at Juju Lewis, how much attention he attracted just as a freshman high school quarterback. I mean, I've been covering Georgia high school football a while. I've never seen a freshman phenom like that.
Agreed. And before we move on, Craig, you have anything else you wanted to highlight on the high school or college realm before we get into professional?
No, but I think the Georgia law is a good example. Other states need to do the same thing, and it's exactly what Wendell Carter's doing, coming back, teaching the financial literacy to Pace Academy students. I think that is so important in the age of the NIL.
I agree. We're going to leave it there, man. We got a lot to talk about. NBA time, guys. Game 7 last night. Man, the Celtics were so close, but couldn't pull it off. What stood out to me was the first play, right? They were favored to win, rightfully so. But I thought when Jason Tatum tweaked his ankle early, you could tell he was never 100% after that. He battled through it, he fought through it, but he just wasn't the same defensively, wasn't the same getting to the hole, getting to his spots. And they struggled, right? They struggled a lot in that one. And I thought Boston took too many threes, right? They were 9 for 42, 0 for 10 to start after the first quarter, right? Way too many threes they took, I thought. And I thought their best scorer in that game was Derek White, who came off the bench, right? He got them back in the game in the third quarter. They were down 6. I felt like they went away from it, right? They're taking too many threes. You got to get to the paint, right? It's okay to live and die by the three, but I think at some points it becomes, it's just too much. And when you're missing too many, get to the paint, draw a foul, get going. And I thought that was really tough for them in that game, and they just didn't have enough. And I thought Jaylen Brown, who I know Tatum came out and said he considers him one of the best players in the league. He wants him to come back next season. But don't be surprised if Jaylen Brown is not in the Celtic uniform. If there's a trade, I would not be shocked if he's in an Atlanta Hawk uniform. Okay? Don't be surprised, guys. He was wearing an Atlanta Braves hat post-conference. Don't be shocked by that. But back to Brown. Didn't have a good game. 8 for 23, 8 turnovers. 8 turnovers. Just was not good. They needed more out of Brown, especially with Tatum being hobbled. I thought Mazzulla did the best he could. Getting them back into the game, it was a great feat. I mean, 3-0, not to get swept, to get back and make this thing a series. Obviously, I thought Boston was probably the more talented team, but I thought it just can't work. I think Miami, and a lot what happened with them is that Caleb Martin, right? He was fantastic. 11 for 16, 26 points, double-double. And a lot of people were saying that they thought Caleb Martin should have been the MVP over Jimmy Butler. I don't necessarily disagree. I mean, he had a great game. He came up big. He was playing really well. And he's going to be a key factor going into the Nuggets series. We'll talk about it in a little bit. But his effort was big in this one. Gabe Vincent, I thought, played well. Kyle Lowry gave him some good minutes. Jimmy Butler had a better game. He was more aggressive. He wasn't passive. He wasn't looking to pass when he got in the paint. He was getting to his spots, hitting his mid-ranges, hitting his threes. I think he hit 3 or 4 threes in that game, getting to the lane. Thought very aggressive, and I thought they were good, really good on the glass as well for Miami. But I heard some rumors too, Craig, that Miami had already booked their flight to Denver prior to the game. So to be able to say what you said after Game 6, losing at home when a game you probably should have won, already booking your flight, saying and guarantee that you're going to win. I mean, shout out to Miami. That's a lot of it takes a lot of guts to say that and be able to go out and perform.
That is a confident 8 seed for sure. I think what you said about Caleb Martin is huge. Him proving that he's a consistent scorer, potentially even what people consider the MVP of that series. If you ask people, how is Miami going to win this series? Oh, Jimmy Butler's going to have to do it all. Well, that's not the case. They're going to be able to benefit from what they saw from him in the finals. Absolutely. He had a huge performance throughout the playoffs, and then that Game 7 performance was a really good sign for the Heat. They did book it, which I thought was epic. I like that. Reminds me of the Mavs with Jason Terry getting the tattoo on his arm before the season. A bold move for sure.
Yeah.
And then the Celtics, I mean, it's a team that's played in and won more Game 7s than any other NBA team. And Miami just had all the confidence. And you saw it from the start, the Tatum ankle injury, the turnovers. It was definitely an up and down series. You thought, oh, they're at home. They fought their way back. But it's what we said, why these 3-0 deficits can be so heartbreaking. Because even if you just win Game 4 and force a 5 or 5 and force a 6, your fans get that hope back. And then last night was just an objectively disappointing result for the Celtics. I know that one really stung.
It did. And we got a question from Jordan. He said, what do you think the Hawks will do this offseason? I think the Hawks need to get, as I've been mentioning before, a veteran player, a guy that can come in, give them good minutes. I don't think John Collins is the answer. I think you have to move off of him. I think you got to get a defensive piece, right? If you can keep Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, if you can get a wing or a kind of a forward player to come in there, I know his position is basketball now, but if you can get a player that can do that and can defend consistently at a high level, and I think Jaylen Brown kind of fits that mold, they might have to get rid of some of like the younger pieces, like the guy they drafted from Duke, right? They might have to get rid of him. They might have to package a couple draft picks. But if you want to go win, and you were so close, a few years ago, you got to the Eastern Conference Finals against Milwaukee, Brown, I think, would be that piece. I think they should do that. Or if I could see them doing that, to be honest with you, Jordan, or I could see them blowing it up. I could see them blowing it up and trading Trae Young somewhere else and doing something different. So I think they got to get off Collins, get a piece like a Jaylen Brown that can defend at a high level, that can get his own shot as well, can play off Trae Young really good, and getting a couple pieces on the front end. I like Okongwu. I think he's very good big man for them, but you're going to need like a starter big. I mean, obviously Clint Capella is good, but I think you need like a shooting big or somebody get off the bench like they had a few years ago, Danilo Gallinari, right? Somebody can come in, give you some shots, space the floor well, and make it easier for Trae Young and some of the other pieces. That's what I think they should do.
What do you think of Caleb Martin just being an undrafted player, people looking at what the Heat were able to do to get to the finals, and then maybe kind of looking at their roster internally and saying, okay, how did the Heat do this?
The Heat have 4 undrafted players on the roster that are playing really well. And I think what it is, everybody gets caught up in the superstardom, right? Everybody gets caught up in having stars, right? Stars don't necessarily always mesh, right? Sometimes you just need good players to come in, know their role, play, exceed their role, star in their role, and give you good minutes. And I think that's what's been key for Miami, right? Duncan Robinson's one. Caleb Martin's another. Tyler Hero, when healthy, is another player that just comes in, knows their role, know what they can give you, and are very consistent in that role. And I think Kevin Love has also been crucial for them as well. Highsmith coming in, giving them defensive minutes. They just have players that know their role, can play exceeded, plays good defense, and not all the pressure's on Jimmy. Obviously, Jimmy's the star, and it was like, oh, it's Jimmy or nothing. But they have players that believe in themselves, and the Gabe Vincent and the Caleb Martin know what they can do, and they don't try to do too much. And I like how Jimmy kind of, I won't say defers, but he gets them involved. He lets them get their shot going early, and I think that's been the key for Miami. They have a great overall roster.
How do you think they're going to match up with Jamal Murray?
All right, so we're moving ahead to the series now, right? Okay, so what worries me about Miami in this series, and I think they have good depth, right? But the Nuggets are long, right?
Yes.
You got Michael Porter Jr., you got Bruce Brown, you got Braun, you got Jeff Green, you got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. You got players that can shoot the ball well. And I feel like at times, Miami struggles to shoot the ball, right? They go in these spells where they can't score. And it's already going to be tough for you because you got Nikola Jokic, who is the MVP, a guy that obviously is getting his first playoff experience, or his first finals experience, excuse me. But I feel like he's unguardable. Who's going to guard Nikola Jokic, right? And then they run such a good pick and roll that it makes it tough for the defense. And Jokic, if you're going to double team him, he's going to find the open man. He's going to find the right play. That's what makes Jokic so unstoppable. It's not all about him. He don't care about scoring the 30 points. He would rather Jamal Murray or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope or Michael Porter Jr. go off for 30 points instead of him. So he's so unselfish, and that's for years is why I think Steph Curry and the Warriors were so good. The Nuggets have an unselfish superstar that does not care about the stats. He cares about winning. And I think it's going to be tough for Miami because they can run. Miami does have a very effective zone defense, but I feel like Mike Malone's going to have them prepared. So for Miami, their offense is going to have to be really good in this one, I think. They're going to have to be able to guard the pick and roll at a high level. Not necessarily stop Jokic, but they're going to have to make shots tough for Jokic. But Jokic is a kind of unorthodox player. He can hit almost anything. So it's tough. So I think their depth is what's going to help Miami. They're the same players, the Caleb Martins. Tyler Hero was predicted to play game 3. Who else? Duncan Robinson, Gabe Vincent. They're going to all be crucial. They're going to have to give them good minutes and be able to score. But the thing is, too, Craig, Jimmy cannot be solely reliant on them. Jimmy's going to have to be able to score 25 to 30 points in this series for them to have a chance, too. Right? Bam has to pick it up. Bam cannot go 1 for 7 in the game 7. Did get 10 rebounds, 7 assists, but he cannot go 1 for 10 in this series, bro. That's not going to work. He's going to have to give you about 20 to 25 points. So all the players are going to have to step up. They got good depth. They're going to probably get Tyler Hero back. But I think the key is how effective can it be stopping that pick and roll between Jokic and Murray. And if they overplay that, they got knockdown shooters that can make it tough for you. And a scorer, underrated scorer, and Michael Porter Jr. can get his own shot.
And Aaron Gordon to just
forgot about him too.
Yep.
They just have so many pieces. That's why I think the Nuggets are going to win. Nuggets have too much talent. I felt like Miami. No offense to Miami. Miami's a great team. I felt like Boston Celtics were more talented than Miami. Miami just had that will and that drive, and that can get you. And now I'm gonna say this too. This is one thing going in the favor for Miami. Miami has the experience. Miami's been there. They haven't won.
True.
This is the first ever appearance for the Nuggets. So sometimes you see in the grand stage, you'll see it becomes a little bit too much. I don't think that should be the case for the Nuggets, but we've seen the year prior, right? The Celtics, right? They got against the Warriors. The Celtics had been to the conference finals numerous of times. That was their first finals berth in a long time. We saw the experience kind of come into factor. I think that's going to be the key for Miami. They got a little bit more experience. Kyle Lowry's won a championship. Jimmy Butler's been there. Bam Adebayo's been there. Tyler Hero's been there. A lot of their core pieces have been there before. So, but if the Nuggets are capable of playing in the way that they can play, I think the Nuggets got this series. But if the experience comes in and you got guys not playing up to the optimal level, Miami got a chance.
Yes, they do. I mean, it's going to take an absolute team effort from Miami. Just imagining that pick and roll. It's just that is the whole key right there. I mean, Jokic is so damn big, and then he can do the pick and roll way out, and then all those different slashers. And they are really dangerous. The 3 ball is going to be absolutely key in the series.
Yeah,
Denver's incredible at home all season long, but Miami just proved they can get it done on the road. So I think this is going to be a great finals matchup. People are saying, oh, it will be better if the Lakers are in it or the Celtics. I think people like this matchup. I really do.
And I think the key to it, and I'll say, I think like the Nuggets could win if Jamal Murray or Nikola Jokic isn't having their best game. That's how deep I think the Nuggets are. They
Yeah.
can still win the game. I feel like Miami could be competitive without Jimmy Butler or Bam with the players and the talent they have. But I don't think they can win a game if Jimmy Butler's not scoring that 20-25 or Bam is not scoring that amount either. But I feel like the Nuggets can still win a game with one of their stars not performing well. I can't say the same for the Heat.
Yeah, the coaching is going to be extremely interesting. Miami's not going to be able to take any playoff. Denver could just run away with leads and just put you in a hole. They close out games extremely well. So I think it's just going to take an incredible effort. I expect it to be close. We know Miami's not going to give up at this point. They're determined. They're confident. They battled as the 8 seed, and I think they're going to make it interesting. But I would tend to agree with you. I mean, watching this Denver team play, it's pretty amazing how good they are moving the ball, and then what Jokic is able to do just with his unique skill set. It's pretty amazing.
Yep. So my prediction, real quick, is Nuggets in 6. What you got, Craig?
I'll go Nuggets in 6 also. I was gonna say 5, but I think we'll go to 6.
All right. So that's what we got. That's our finals breakdown. Obviously, we'll have more coverage next week talking about it, what's been going on. At that point, it'll probably be a couple games in. So stay tuned for that. That should be really, really interesting.
What are the odds at this point?
I think the Nuggets are heavy favorites too.
Yeah, it looks like game 1, Nuggets -9.
Yeah. So heavy favorites. But we're gonna leave it there. We got a little bit more news before we wrap the show for today. Let's talk about the latest standings in the MLB after kind of Memorial Day. Let's take a peek at that. All right, so right now MLB got the Rays playing some really good baseball, 39-17 right now, leading the AL East. Yankees are trying to get back in the fold. They're 6 games behind them currently right now. The Orioles are ahead of them as well at 34-20. AL Central, the Twins have a slim lead against the Tigers, 28-26, only team above 500 in their division, followed by the Tigers, Guardians, White Sox, and Royals. And then AL West, you got the Rangers, 34-19 right now, followed by the Astros at 31-22, and then the Angels at 29-26. In the National League, the Braves leading their division, 4-game lead right now against the Marlins. They just played the Phillies. Had a lot of people in attendance, over 160,000 people for that 4-game homestand for them, 4-6 in their last 10. You got the Marlins at 28-26, the Mets at 27-27, and the Phillies at 25-28. You got the Brewers in the NL Central, 28-25, followed by the Pirates at 26-27, the Reds at 24-29, and in NL West, you got the Dodgers 33-22, followed by the Diamondbacks at 31-23, and the Giants at 20-26. The thing was interesting too about the Braves right now is they have an MVP candidate in Ronald Acuna Jr., who is on pace right now for 40 home runs, 60 stolen bases, 100 RBIs, and over 150 plus runs. He's been having a very good season right now, coming off his injury, torn ACL last year. I think he's playing really, really good. Having a great year. Definitely a name to keep an eye on. Guy that's been an all-star multiple years, won Rookie of the Year, MVP, doing a lot of good things right now for the Braves.
Yeah, and the thing about him, it's like every month or so you'd see a play where it's like, oh, he's taking it off, he's loafing or whatever. He wouldn't run out a potential single or would jog. The effort's there, the focus is there, the talent's there. I just think at this point of his career, he's been clearly the franchise player, and it's just always good to see someone have an injury and then come back just at top form. I mean, that's just huge. Lifts the entire clubhouse. I think with these current standings, as good as some of these teams have been with Tampa Bay, the Rangers are red hot. The biggest lead within the division is only 4 games, Tampa Bay,
Right.
the Braves.
Right.
So it's still really close. And so that's a good sign for baseball too. These front runners, it's all going to be competitive. It's all going to shape out. So that is good, unless you're a Kansas City Royals fan. We're currently in the basement.
It's all right. You got the Chiefs. Y'all be all right. But that's what we got for MLB. Watch out for that. We'll have more coverage going forward. Major question from Davey Axis. He says, where do you think, D-Hop was released this past week from the Cardinals? Where do you think he plays next year? Got the Bills in the question, got the Chiefs,
Yeah, I saw
got the
Chiefs.
Browns. What do you think is a good fit for D Hop?
I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to the Chiefs. I mean, I really wouldn't. We've seem to have been that franchise that's bringing these receivers in, almost like rehabilitating their career, and then they'll take a higher role if they pan out and make it. So I think the Chiefs would be a good fit. And if you're a receiver, why wouldn't you want to go there?
I think interesting team to keep an eye on. I think Ravens as well, as Dave said, they're interesting. I think the Bills, they need another receiver. As kind of like, I don't know who would be their slot. Obviously got Gabe Davis, but Stephon Diggs isn't happy right now. He's not at OTA, so I have to keep an eye on that. I think that'll be interesting. And then I think the team that could really use them is the Browns. Right? Obviously got Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, but I think he will really help their offense going forward. And really be an asset. They already play with Deshaun Watson. They have that relationship. So I think he would be another interesting piece. D-Hop to the Eagles, they got too many weapons already. I just feel like he wouldn't get the ball enough. And I feel like that would be kind of tough for him because what you mean no? What's bad? What? D-Hop to the Eagles? Huh? What? I don't think I don't think that happened. That was our comment section.
They're saying it's the Bills and the Chiefs.
Yeah, I don't think Eagles have too much, right? You got AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. The Eagles have too much. I think D-Hop, I could see him going to the Chiefs or the Bills. I wouldn't be shocked if he went to the Browns either. But I personally, I don't see that. I think Philly got too much. Philly's not gonna be able to pay him. You know what I'm saying? Just get a quarterback that major money. Philly's not gonna have the money. But stay tuned for the Bills or Chiefs or the Browns as potential landing spots.
If it's an arms race, I think the Bills probably have more of a say more of a need at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
they really could use him, so I think they would kind of win that bidding war. But I think the Chiefs are, yeah, those two would be outstanding fits for him, 100%.
Totally agree. And then we're gonna wrap up. I'm gonna let Craig get the closing comment of whatever he wants to talk about. But real quick on what you was asking earlier, Dave, I would like to see Kane actually at Man United. I like Marcus Rashford. He had a great year. Had I think it was one goal short of what Ronaldo had. I think in 2021, 2022. But I think he'd be another asset to Man United as they're going to be playing in the Champions League next year. They made the group stage, finished as a top, I think, 3 team. So I would love to see him kind of go along with them. Their midfield was great this season. Another striker in there with Kane, who's on another level with Tottenham. I think he'd be a great asset for them instead of Real Madrid, who kind of already has that. Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo. I could see maybe even one possibility. I know he signed for PSG for a little minute. Kylian Mbappe. I wouldn't be surprised. Keep your eye on him going to Real Madrid in a couple seasons as well. So that's what I think on that front. But I'm gonna throw it to Craig. Any closing comments or anything else you want to talk about?
Stay tuned. We're gonna have the official pods released for the 7-on-7. I've been wanting to share it, but it's obviously been very complicated getting the coaches, the teams to confirm it, to pay it, all that stuff. So that will be coming out because it's just in 2 weeks, and then I'm sure I think later this week we might announce the the second annual class for the Hall of Fame. That's coming up. I'm excited to see the results from that, and that'll be a great celebration later this year.
Yeah, and I'll just say this as a closing comment. Definitely keep it locked for Score ATL. We're doing a lot of big stuff. As we said, 7-on-7 tournament's expanded. Before we was having it at Roswell Area Park. Now we're having it at Georgia Tech. So we got our second inaugural class. It's going to be announced at scoreatl.com. We did the first initial class. You guys that are watching want to go see that. The inaugural class of major high school Georgia athletes for football were announced. We have that live on our YouTube channel. Definitely go check that out and go look at that. But we have that coming up this year. We got our first inaugural media day. 37 football games are going to be televised on TV. We got a lot of stuff cooking. So definitely keep a lot for that. We're going to have coverage for our 7-on-7. Major people are going to be there for that. So a lot of good stuff going on. Definitely follow us on our Twitters at Najee Book, at Craig Sager. We're going to have having recruitments on live on our show right here. Major prospects. We're not there to the 5-star yet, but we're working, we're grinding. We're getting a couple 3-stars in here. I'm trying to have a couple 4-stars as well, but live on our YouTube page. So whenever you see our live thing come up, make sure you click on it. Make sure you're waiting because we're gonna have major news dropping all the time. We appreciate all our fans and stuff for tuning in always. Our loyal supporters, Jimmy Cash and Dave. Y'all are great, Jordan as well. But yeah, we got a lot going on, guys. So we're gonna have live commitments. We're gonna have live TV. So keep it tuned. We got a lot building and brewing right now in Score ATL, and we appreciate all the support.
Yep. Go Carver.